everything should be good to go on this end.
I'll be back later.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody's tired.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I will tell you a secret. Not normal Beta 21 can quantify, but not OGI can quantify. So you take two technologies that not supposed to quantify the emission, and you try to sew them together, it will not give you the right number. That's true story about it. And the emission factor for Meta 21 was written like this out, and it's not related to reality. And doing it with OGI camera, it's so complicated. If you're gonna do a good survey and measure what is going out of petrochemical operation, and it was done by TCQ a few years ago, you will find out that the actual emission are 10 times to 30 times more than what you report. So we can do a lot of calculations, we can do a lot of work, but in the end, the numbers doesn't represent nothing. But we find leaks, that's true. And we fix the leaks. Okay, so.
Just give it a couple more minutes and we'll
Yeah.
get started. Okay. Yeah, I guess we're running on time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started with our next presenter. It's Gilad Shpitzer with Atmosfir Optics, WISE LDAR Enhancing LDAR Programs with Defense Line Systems. Gilad was born and raised in Jerusalem, graduated from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem with a master's degree in atmospheric chemistry and environmental science. He has acquired over 20 years of practical experience in the field of air pollutant measurements, from source sampling, analytical laboratories to remote sensing. Gilad is the innovator, co-founder, and CEO of Atmosfir Optics and an Associates in Science Research Services international leaders in the field of atmospheric chemistry. Gilad served on the board committee of the Israeli Ecological Society and will be glad to share his vast experience. Welcome.
Thank you. So feel free to stop me and ask me whatever you want. I started as a source testing group, also did LDAR job. I'm qualified by ISO 17025 for doing normal LDAR job and also OGI cameras. Just because of the last presentation, I did research for the government of Israel using 3 manufacturers of OGI cameras and 2 different LDAR, normal LDAR surveys. We did it on 20,000 compounds, and I can tell you that the result was different. Each company did different, and the numbers were different. And 30% of the identification by one group isn't found by the other group. So there's a lot of mess, and I think next year I will give a presentation about this one. I also run a laboratory, but I'm going to talk about Atmosfir Optics that operates in the United States. We are a software integration company. We use a SaaS model, business model, and we are accredited for ISO 17025, conducting any air measurement using method TO16. TO16 allows us to measure any gases in the atmosphere using open path FTIR. We can integrate FTIR, tunable dyed laser, PIDs, electrochemical cells, FIDs, and we can do the all integration in just software. I'll skip that one. So usually when you ask people where the leak coming from, where it's coming from, it usually doesn't come from your flanges. It will come from your tank farms, product terminal, equipment fair, luminaires, cooling tower, and evaporation tools, heat exchangers. Those you usually don't do in normal LDAR projects. So if you want to quantify how much VOC is going out of petrochemical industry, a lot of the parts are not in the LDAR project, so the number will not be right. And that's why the regulators start taking approach to monitoring fugitive emission monitoring. And I say the best way to do it is by fence line. So if you're talking about the fence line, if we put point monitor on one of the fences, it either will catch the plume or will not catch the plume. Most of the time, it will not catch the plume. So it will give underestimation. That's why we started to understand that we must measure along lines. Now, the all open path measurement along fence line dramatically improved the ability to represent emission where measurement are needed source. So now imagine that I will tell you not how much the flange is emitting, how much all the refinery is emitting. And I think this is the perspective that the regulators should try to move, not just in the United States. What inside the facility is subject to the facility. Here's a regulator wants to know that today you emit 100, tomorrow we want you to do 90% and 80%. How are you going to do it? You want to use an OGI camera, you want to use ultrasonic, you want to use SOP, do whatever you want. That's my perspective. And because we know that the numbers that the LDAR gives are not true, it's related to the numbers of, we saw a lot of coefficient numbers, and the numbers that the OGI cameras give you are not true. So if we can give you a true number, when there is a true USCPA method that allows you to quantify big area sources, so we can give you one number, we can track this number, we don't need 10,000s of compound or pieces of equipment to monitor. Because equipment failure and human errors are, we cannot predict on time and space, then we must measure 24/7. Each day we expedite our finding. When we find a problem, we reduce 1% of our emission. And now I just heard that in method 21 with the RGA camera. So if you find a leak, you must multiply it by 50% of the time between the last survey. So imagine now I expedite my my return, and I can reduce a lot of the emissions. So we started as a normal LDAR. We started with the SOP, then you go with the PID, FID sniffers, and then we are now in the head of technology using OGI cameras. But what I say, you can do it from remote sensing and get more accurate, total accurate number. I cannot tell what is the flange that is leaking. I cannot tell which specific valve is leaking, but I can tell you the number. This is the true about LDAR, and all of you knows that better than me. Most of the equipment doesn't leak. So we go every day, do tens of pieces of equipment that they are not leaking, while just 5 or 1% of them give the big leaks. So we do a lot of work that actually doesn't have meaning. Maybe it's got meaning for us as people that earn out of it, but it doesn't improve nothing. And I did a comparison between method 21 and open path fence line monitoring. So quantify emission, method 21, not just by me, and the English is not right, so I will say it in my own language. Method 21 doesn't quantify your emission. We did a lot of technologies for remote sensing. It could be OpenPath FTIR using EPA method OTF10 that allows you to quantify. It could be LDAR projects and things like that. All of them says that the actual emission are 10 times to 30 times more than what we're reporting. So the quantification based on method 21, and it really doesn't matter if it's sniffers or OGI, are not true. Leak detection and time resolution. So if you do a normal LDAR project or alternative, that you come every quarter, every month to find the leak, we don't see the leak on real time, so it will take us 30 to 100 days to find the leak, and by the time, all the time we are leaking. Spatial resolution. So I cannot tell the flange that it's leaking. I cannot tell the valve that is leaking. But I can tell you the white area, which tank is leaking, on which unit is leaking, or major leaks. So for that, you will need to come with your sniffer or your OGI cameras and find the problem. That we cannot do from remote sensing. Data complexity. So I can give you one data that says your refinery needs that and that grams per hour, and it will update every hour and give you the results. While you want to do it with LDAR, then you will need to take 100,000 calculation, put it in some Excel sheet, and it will give you some number that it's not related. Safety. We are on the fence line. Not people inside the facility while you're doing other people. You've got, I don't know, 20 people running inside your facility. Some of them are tired, going with equipment when it's up, and then you will have a lot of safety issues. If you can do it from remote, then it's much better. And cost effective. Installing fence line monitoring is quite expensive, but after you install it, then it's much more cheaper than doing 20 people every day in the refinery. Okay, so you saw it. What is the most important parameter for LDAR program? If your camera see 1 gram or 10 gram, if your sniffer got an extension or doesn't have an extension, no, it's not that. If you use an ultrasonic or not ultrasonic, the most important thing in your calculation will be the time that took from the leak started until you find it. So if we understand that the time is crucial, now we understand that a good LDAR project must have some kind of 24/7 monitoring. It could be on the fence line, it could be something like Molax was presenting here, a lot of point monitor inside the facilities. But the true way to do it is you must measure 24/7. This is from the Canadian program, and they call now to do LDAR every 3 months, every quarter. And the average price would be, I don't know, around $1 to $2 million. And they also call you to do fence line monitoring, not just for benzene, but also for the rest of the BSTECs, including butadiene. So in the end, we've got a budget around $2.5 million to put a fence line monitoring that will enhance our LDAR projects. We got the fence line rule in the United States that says that every refinery must measure benzene, but we can measure benzene against the rest of the compound, and it will give us a good estimation. At least with the Canadian, they allow you to use a comprehensive monitoring program. So you can go to the regulator, said I can do it better, do 3 years in a row, method 21, and the other method that you represent. And if you prove that it's at least equal or better, then they will let you continue using it. So it's not that difficult, you know, but you need to invest 3 years in a row doing the comparison. So what we recommend is doing an open path measurement on the fence line, doing point monitor inside, chip monitor, point monitor inside the industrial area, and then to write a method that says, whenever I send something on the fence line, an increase of emission, and our point monitor says that there is an increase, then we send our LDAR pistol and fix the problem. And there's money in it. So there's been a lot of research all over the world that says that at least in the gas exploration, just loss of product, it's between $1 million to $20 million per year of operation. With $20 million, I can do whatever I want as a fence line monitoring, but also with $2 million, I can do it, or with $1 million. So not just the regulator should push you, but also saving money and increasing safety can save you to do LDAR project and not just the regulations. Another thing that we should understand, and you can see it every time we do LDAR, if I put my probe near, then I can be 10,000 ppm. I take 5 centimeters less, then it drops down to 1,000 ppm. And if I'm tired, then I can just do it from 40 centimeters, then I don't have a leak. So I had workers that are really good workers, ex-pilots, and I had ex-commander units people. And believe me, you know that better than me. No one can do a good job for 8 hours, 1 centimeter like that, and then problem starts. What we should know is that when you're near the pipe, then we are talking sometimes percentage that it's going out of the pipe. And when we are far away, then it's dropped down to PPP levels. That's meaning when we are in the facility, we can use a cheap point monitors that measure in PPM levels. We don't need PPP levels. So it could be either PIDs or electrochemicals or cheap explosive proof that you could put inside. But when we are in the fence line, we need something that can measure in low detection unit like PPP levels. We invented our defense line system that tells you when some leak starts, because it measures 24/7 along lines. It will tell you what is leaking. We can have the ability to speciate any gas here, so we can tell you the composition, if it's benzene and propane, just propane, toluene, and xylene. So now you can also know where it's coming from. We do back triangulation and we tell you where it's coming from, and we can quantify how much your emission. Now imagine that I can know what is the average concentration between me and the wall, and I can do it at multiple height. So now I know what is the plane, what is the average concentration along the plane. I just multiply by the vector of the wind, and I can give you how much your refinery can do. And that's it. And we can do it and update it every hour, and we can give you reliable results with that. This is an open path instrument. You can see an FTIR or not a positioner that can go different heights and different location. Retroreflector, shoot the beam into the retroreflector, get the energy back in the end. Each molecule absorb light in different region. That's how we can distinguish between the different gases, and we can quantify by Bell-Lambert law. It's an official method. There is a US EPA method called Tier 16 that allows you to measure any gaseous using this method. I will not go into the bits and bytes and that it's not that easy, that you need to know how to do it, but in the end you will have a software to do it, so I will not go into it. And this is, you got the US EPA method, ASTM method, European standard. All of them allows you to measure concentration along lines. In the source location, we can find the high concentration in one segment, back triangulate. The wind change a little bit, we find high concentration in different segments, back triangulate, and we will tell you the source. So it will give you a wide area. So I don't give you the flash, but I tell you, you got now a big problem over here. Send your LDAR people fix it. And now talking just 1% of the pieces that you need to do LDAR. So we just now go fix this problem and we save and 90% of our emission. So what are the benefits to the industry using WISE LDAR? And WISE LDAR is you got point monitoring, I'll see in a second, point monitors inside the facility and fence line monitoring. Reducing fugitive emission more efficiently and quickly. I said time is the most critical. If we are measuring 24/7, we solve the problem. Reducing product loss, if you're talking about not oil, but gas exploration, it goes from $1 million to $20 million just in losing product. Operational LDAR cost intervals, that will be slow because we need to convince the government that if we do a project like that, then they want relief on the normal LDAR job. So if you look for 5 years ahead, then you can reduce this money. Increase safety. Not just that we don't have a lot of people inside our facility, but we also find the leak faster, finding the leak faster, reduce the risk of explosion and things like that. So that's another safety issues. Potentially reducing emission fees. And I agree with the former speaker that if you go with OGI cameras, you will find that you actually report that you need more. And if you go with my approach, you will find, again, that you need more. The true way to deal with it is, first of all of us should admit that LDAR is not the ground truth. LDAR was written in the 70s, 80s. People had limited knowledge. They write their coefficient factor, and they are not truths. Now, today, you can measure, you don't need coefficient factors. You can measure it. So why we use high tech and try to take it down to the low tech? It should be the opposite. And the way to do it is that you do a normal LDAR project and you do a high tech quantification and say, let's say the LDAR say I emit 10, but with my quantification it's a bit 50. So now I got a 1 to 5 factor. And then we should update our reporting to this factor. And that's why we eliminate problem for the future. So what is our recommendation for petrochemical complex? Because we've got a lot of different compounds inside. So we will have, as I said, a chip point monitor inside the refinery that can tell you total VOC or methane. That's it. And on the fence line, we will have an FTIR that give us the ability to specify which compound. So let's say now this one was starting to say that we've got high concentration. On the fence line, we find high concentration, but we can tell you what compound it was. So the speciation will go with the fence line, and the specific place will go with the point monitor. And now actually we're doing a project in Texas in petrochemical industry that will use fence line monitoring and point monitor together to give the speciation. You heard about the MOLAX, a lot of presentation, leak detection sensor network, and it was approved by the US EPA method for specific site and specific parameter on the site. But I think the way it's okay, they don't reveal a lot of knowledge, but the way at least they are using 24/7 measurement, and that's the basic that I said. If you go to gas exploration, so over there again, you can either use point monitors for methane equipped with meteorological data. They can stay self over there, and we can sell them in a few $100s per month with all the data. So you don't need to pay nothing, pay us a couple of $100 per month, and you got all the data. You know where there is a leak, and where there is a leak, you send the other people to fix it. So we will not, if you put one, we will not sense it immediately, but in the course of 1 or 2 days, the wind will do its magic and we will sense it. If you are talking about wide area, then we're going to use technology called tunable dye laser. And again, it's for either total alkanes or for methane, depends on what we are measuring, and it can cover up to 100-meter facility. Again, not expensive technology, and you pay us a monthly payment. What we do is piping. Piping, you cannot put thousands of point monitor. So the way to use it is either by drones or by helicopters, or use your truck. Put a sensor on your truck and try to drive all the way and back. It's less attractive than drones or helicopters, but trucks do the job, and they are closer to the ground, so it's a good way to do. And there are a few manufacturers in the United States. Again, I'm not a manufacturer, and I don't drive the truck. I just say what I believe in. But the true problem with the gas exploration is the global background of methane. And the global background of methane is around 2 ppm. Well, if you are near the source of emission of methane, you are talking about 10 ppb, 100 ppb emission that you. So how can you say what is the global background fluctuation and what is contributed by the source nearby? And that is the tricky question. So to build an analyzer that can measure methane is one thing. That your analyzer will be able to distinguish between the global fluctuation of methane and what is emitted from the facility, that is a different story, and we've got a pattern how to measure net concentration above the global background. So in conclusion, time is the most important factor for a good LDAR program. That is why 24/7 monitoring should be required. And I really doesn't care if it will be a PID, FID, ultrasonic, OGI camera, whatever, but measure 24/7. You cannot do it once a month. You cannot do it once every quarter, for sure not once every year. When monitoring petrochemical complex with a mixture of compacts, holistic approach is recommended, and the holistic approach is a point monitor, explosive proof on the facility, and fence line monitoring with TPP measurement capabilities and a lot of gases that it can be monitored on the fence line. When monitoring oil and gas exploration, when there is one single gas domination, it could be either methane or I don't know, whatever, butane, depend on the well. Then we recommend point gas monitor, and if it's a wide area, you can use a tunable light laser. It is important with each installation to have a local monitor data. We found out that if you use 100 kilometer wind data, it doesn't relate to your site specific wind data. And for long lines of pipeline, we recommend mobile VOC or CH analyzer platform such as cars, drones, helicopters with good time resolution. We need it at least in 1 second time resolution. And one of the most important and challenging issues is how to separate local emission from background fluctuation. That's it. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Excellent.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is, yes.
Are you Tanya? Okay, Tanya. Yeah, good to meet you. I'm David.
Oh, nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
good to meet you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna set up a couple of chairs.
Yeah, I was gonna wonder, so what's the format? I sent slides over. Are we going through slides or?
I think there's slides, but if there's something you want to talk about in more detail, you're more than welcome to.
Okay.
I've been writing questions all day down based on people's presentations and topics, but really it's a free for all for anyone that's in the room to ask you all questions.
Okay.
So we have 2 auditors, 2 active companies that do alternative work practice in method 21.
Mhm.
I'm not quite sure what your background is.
So the reason I think I'm on this panel is because we as a technology company, we have an alternative work practice.
Yes.
That's been approved by a government agency.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's
As the method, or you
As-
have an alternative method you're using?
an alternative method we're
What are
using.
you using?
We use autonomous LDAR, which is the Clean Connect technology.
Okay,
So-
great.
So it's,
Hmm,
so any questions around what they want? I mean, so the process we went through was, basically the Turing test of how to, like, technology versus manual stuff.
yeah.
Is how do you prove that it's equal to a human? That's kind of what we went through.
So I think everybody else on the panel, everyone's gonna know, obviously it's method 21 or OGI, right? That's what we're
Sure.
talking about. So maybe we should do an introduction of you and your technology first,
Sure.
so that we'll make sure we get everybody in the room on the same wavelength
Right.
of questions they can ask.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and so
Okay.
it was a pain to me, and that was kind of the point of the stuff I sent over. It's like,
Uh-huh,
here's some context of why I'm here.
yeah,
know,
sure.
so I
Did
didn't know.
did you send anything?
I sent slides and yeah. I
Let
didn't
me
know
see if
that-
it's here.
Right there, Mark Smith.
Okay.
So if you go to slide like 5, 6, 7,
This one?
yeah, like this is kind of, and then there's an example of it on slide 8. So it's really just 4 slides I could.
Okay.
You guys want me to? Obviously I don't have to, but.
Yeah, can you keep it down to like no more than 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I could do it
Perfect.
in 2 minutes probably.
perfect.
So yeah, is that okay?
Yes,
I just
absolutely.
said, I think the context would help a lot. It helped me too.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not a OGI operator,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
and I'm not a.
I have your bio, right? Let me double check.
Sure. What's an allergy provider that happens to have a work?
Is this the
practice
next presentation?
We're
is this?
actually, it's a panel next,
It's a
so
panel
we're
next,
not
okay, great.
having a presentation, but he's gonna go over just a couple of slides in the beginning.
Okay.
Because I need to get the room on the same page.
Do you want it recorded or you can say no? It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I think the panel would honestly be better if
Do
we
without
are not recording.
Okay.
Because panels tend to be more free.
Okay, great, then-
Conversation.
Do whatever you need to do and
Okay,
all
great.
good.
David Conlon. Yes, I got yours. Okay.
Yeah. Are we good?
Yes, we're totally good. Yeah.
You think it's applicable?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I think when originally we put the panels together, we were talking about AWP as an alternative work practice, which is an actual method
Right.
using OGI and method 21. But talking about alternative technologies and alternative ways to monitor, we can pivot. So
Yeah. cool.
totally welcome.
It's
Yes.
just, it's a. Yeah, I mean, what we went through is an alternative kind of work practice, Turing test.
Yeah.
And I'll explain that.
Okay.
Wait, I'm David.
How are you? Derek.
Derek Mock from David.
Jared.
Nice to meet you. Are you guys on the panel?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Already prepared questions?
I prepared some, but it's open to the room, so I'll keep it going so it doesn't die. But yeah,
Don't throw any haymakers now.
no.
Soft. Yeah, you sit soft pitch.
I'm not sitting, I'm standing.
Standing?
Yeah.
Sit on the end.
David's going to be talking about an alternative technology first, so you can get the whole room on the same page.
Okay.
And then we'll get started with panel questions.
So this is intended to be AWP discussions on AWP?
LDAR method 21, AWP, and alternative technologies. So
Okay.
alternative methods, whatever. So kind of a catch-all. Because we're having the whole appendix K conversation, I think, in a panel tomorrow. So this is really focused on the rest of LDAR, right?
Just about, about the week, but 2 hours.
Right.
These are all your questions?
Yeah, I just wrote them down all day when you guys are all talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the technology presenting on?
Clean Connect,
Yeah.
it's autonomous LDAR. So it's a alternative work practice to manual OGI inspections. That was government approved through the state of Colorado, kind of leading the way. And so it's just kind of, so we went through a Turing test, right?
Okay.
To understand if the technology is equivalent to traditional LDAR. And it is. So it's kind of, but it didn't quite fit. So I was like, hey, does this make sense, kind of thing. And so I wanted to just preface it before we got into the actual methodologies.
What kind of sensors are you using?
OGI cameras.
Are you using cameras, and what are you?
Yeah, they're with it's a detection algorithm that sits on top of the video feeds. And
So it's stationary then?
It's stationary. And the way that we did it is there's a essentially a MDL, minimum detection limit, from 100 meters at 2 kilograms an hour. Well, if you do that through like dispersion models, it turns out that at 2 kilograms an hour and 100 meters away, an OGI detection with a single LDAR inspection is equivalent in the state, and this is probably all preface, the state of Colorado is equivalent to monthly OGI inspections. So with the new regulations coming up, it helps augment some of the new pull on traditional LDAR.
Yeah.
So that's what it was intended. That's why I was on this panel, I think. But other than that, yeah. Is late.
What?
I'm tired. Also,
It's a long
about
day.
you guys. It's been a long day.
It is a long day.
Talking is exhausting.
It's exhausting. I tell
Yeah,
you.
I sleep for like a week after conferences.
Yeah.
Like for
Yeah.
a lot of smiling.
Yes.
Have you had any technical difficulties? Is everything working pretty well today?
It's been great.
Everything's been working. It didn't look like it was gonna start that way this
I
morning.
know. They were literally putting everything together.
15 minutes before we started this
And you're
morning.
just like,
They were like, they had the projector upside down. I'm like, oh boy. Yeah.
Is it just the algorithm that you produce, so you're just taking the image and then you have a program that's analyzing it to look for a leak?
Yeah, then you have the work practice that follows it, right? And so the work practice that follows it is how like what the regulators actually wanted to see. How are you handling the data that's coming in? And so and then so we can touch on that. That's the next slide after this one, but it shows you how and once you have the data ingesting and coming in, then, okay, what do you do with it? If you do find a leak, what's the work
Protocol.
practice that goes in, which follows subpart W, because it's binary, right? It's a binary detection. It's not, there's no statistical analysis or anything. It's gas or no gas.
Yeah.
And so and because it's OGI, it passes the test. It's equivalent to a manual inspection at the right distance, at the right size, right? So
Yeah, because you're monitoring all the time.
you're monitoring all the time. And so
So it's finding the leak faster.
Which facilities are you doing this at?
upstream, it's primarily been upstream. We are on a midstream facility and getting into some of the CAMREF stuff as well. But where it's ready, is upstream. It's ready for upstream. Needs some more work on some of the other stuff, but I'll do my best to.
Yeah.
Because I know this audience is definitely probably the majority downstream refining, stuff like that. I don't know, but
Well, I mean, we had a whole class in here that it was jam packed for quad OB and quad OC.
okay. Yeah.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Good.
Hey, I'm David.
Nice to meet you. Yes.
Derek,
Nice
nice to meet you. How are you?
You look really familiar.
I'm here all the time, so.
No, this is my first.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, have a seat anywhere. David's gonna give us a presentation just for probably about 10 minutes first, but I'm gonna have everybody kind of do a self-introduction. What's your specialty? You can move it wherever you want. You wanna be in the center of the room?
I'll sit in the back.
Yeah, right.
It's like that Step Brothers movie, that interview where they dual interviewed together. He's like. Right, you got it. I think I can fix this whole pan thing.
I think I saw that. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I must have had some.
Such a great.
Tanya, do you mind if I just start? I can go really quick. It'll be less than 2 minutes if I can just start the first slide. Is that okay?
Such a great.
Do you want me to do introduction first and then start?
Sure. That's fine. Whatever, however you want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This needs to go into the rectangular file. Plastic line, rectangular. Trash can.
I know I saw it.
I thought you would. That's funny. Raul. What are you doing? He just texted me and telling me the eagle has landed.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Tanya Jackson. I'm the Vice President of Operations for the Leak Detection and Repair Division at Atmosfir. I will be the moderator for this panel today. So this is a panel on LDAR, Method 21, alternative work practices and technologies. So we have a team of experts up here. You are more than welcome to raise your hand and ask questions, or you can pass me your questions. I have a list of questions as well that I've listened to a lot of these presenters today. So please feel free. This is a big discussion session. So if you're not asking questions, it can be pretty boring. So before we get started, I'm going to have each of the panelists just give a little brief introduction about themselves, their expertise, so you know where they're coming from. And then we're going to have David give a short presentation just on his particular methodology on how he's using his technology, because it's a little bit different than the standard OGI method 21 that we're all used to. So I want to make sure everybody's starting from the same place on information that we're going to be talking about today. So gentlemen, if you could please introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. Brian Palmer. I work for Tri-Hydro Corporation. I've been in the industry about 14 years. I'm one of Tri-Hydro's team leaders on our LDAR team. I guess my focus is midstream, so for tri-hydro.
Jared Metcalf with Montrose Environmental. I lead our OGI division. Been in industry for about 20 years, and then I've been doing leak detection and repair now for a little over 10, specializing with the camera and adopting new technologies as they come along.
I am Derek Mock. I have been in the LDAR industry for about 28 years now, specializing on the quality side of Method 21 and with OGI as well, just on the audit side and on the quality side.
Awesome. My name is David Conley. I'm the CEO of a company called Clean Connect. We're an alternative technology company, computer vision company. My expertise is product development in software, and been in the oil and gas space on the engineering side of things for about 11 years. So a little bit about my background. Awesome.
If David, you want to introduce us to your.
Yeah, I wanted to just, is this work?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to just real quickly just kind of set the stage with, because it's a little bit different than these guys' expertise. So I just wanted to do kind of an informative, hey, this is why I'm here. This is what we do kind of thing. So anywho, we have a suite of software. One of them is a computer vision model that essentially creates an autonomous LDAR operator to help augment your LDAR operators with the new load, with the new regulations coming down the road. We expect LDAR resources to have to increase 7 times the typical inspection. So with that, we help augment the people that can help that create autonomous workflows. So in doing that, there's really 2 different types of technologies we've seen. The EPA categorizes them as scanning technologies and for inspection technologies. So where we fall is the same as Method 21 and handheld OGI and BSER, which is an inspection technology. Most other technologies, fence line monitors, planes, satellites, open path lasers, things like that, fall into a scanning category, which then have to be followed up with a traditional OGI inspection. So we've crossed the chasm on the other side of it to where we can help actually augment OGI and LDAR operations. And this is kind of why is you'll see on the left here is a typical autonomous LDAR detection, and on the right hand side is your typical scanning. So this is fence line monitors that trigger an alert. You can see that during this maintenance event, which is very obvious, our fence line did not actually detect that emission. So because of that, that's why it's primarily a scanning technology and not a BSER or best system of emissions reduction like a handheld OGI program. That being said, we had to go through, in order to cross that chasm over to, hey, we are an inspection technology. We got approved in Colorado. This is specifically the state of Colorado, but Colorado is typically a foresight into what's coming down the rest of the world, or the rest of the US at least, as an AIM, alternative instrument monitoring method. And that's required really 6 big key milestones that we had to hit. The first one is we had to be source level detection. We had to show blind testing against MDLs, which I'll get into, LDAR equivalency, we have the alternative work practice, operator endorsement, and EPA approval. So the EPA approval came from Section 8, which is Colorado. They sit on the CDPHE's AIM board. That's how that works. This is the AIM approved workflow. So it looks like a lot. Most of this is autonomous from detect, operators diagnosing, the operators making the repair, then verification, report, and retraining. That's all done autonomously. So it's really not that much. And here's just a quick example of what that actually looks like. You have cold venting. Software suggests, hey, I think this is cold venting. Do you want to restart it? It says to restart. And then once that's done, we can then verify that that was fixed, and all without having to send an LDAR operator out to the field. And we can just verify it. So that is the workflow that was approved: detect, diagnose, repair, verify. I think that just didn't it? Oh, looks like, I don't know if this is different. We can skip that. Anywho, that whole product was funded and or created by the operations department. So the operations department for this particular operator not only used autonomous LDAR, but all of these other things. So whenever we go to market, whenever we go onto a facility, it's a holistic solution to essentially reduce emissions across the board, not only with alternative work practice on the LDAR side, but also on compressor loadouts, your loadout observation, non-invasive tank level monitoring, inspecting your thief hatches, all done remotely using commercial off-the-shelf sensors, cameras, things like that. So I appreciate it. This is offer we're doing for this conference, testing it out. We are giving away and including OGI cameras in our software suite. So those cameras are sold at no cost to the operators here at this event. So that kind of gives everybody a baseline of what we do and why I'm here. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So before we get going, does anyone have an initial question? This is open panel, open discussion.
I'll ask first question.
Okay.
For the alternative aim
Uh-huh.
program, is there a number of fixed cameras that you have to have in order
Absolutely.
to do that?
Absolutely. So the way that the equivalency works and the equivalency modeling is they're taking the dispersion data from an LDAR sim or a feast model or something like that and saying, okay, if I put a camera on here and my minimum detection limit's a 2 kilogram per hour leak and it's fugitive, once a month or so, you essentially model that, and that was what proves out the equivalency or the reductions depending on. So the temporal aspect in the distance to the leak itself is very important. And so the alt-aim that it's actually approved is for 100 meters, and the MDL is at 2 kilograms an hour. So the way that the work practice works for the alt-aim is once a year, you're still running a manual LDAR inspection annually. This is to help augment the other 11 months of the year. So.
Their methodology would have to be approved. It's approved in Colorado, but didn't use it.
This methodology is approved in Colorado. Colorado is by far the most stringent regulatory environment in the U.S. So, I'm thinking it would work for other places too. It's not done yet today, though.
I think a terrifying thing for a lot of clients when we're talking about new technologies is the idea of switching from something they know very well, method 21, right? And they figured out all the pitfalls and where they need to audit and what people are looking for, and then switching to a new technology, like what are those pitfalls? What are auditors going to look at? So what would you say is probably the low-hanging fruit for OGI, alternative work practice, your technology, right? Like what's the low-hanging fruit? Where are the mistakes going to happen that people need to be aware of when they're converting their programs?
I've got kind of an answer. So if we're talking specifically alternative work practice under the EPA and using OGI camera, it's going to be the training of the technician, which could lead to some pitfalls, which is scanning too fast and missing leaks. And under the AWP, it has to be recorded. So that's all there and visible for an auditor. So I'd have to say that's the biggest one. It's there.
What would you be looking at, Derek, as an auditor? If you were going into an OGI program and this program, where would you start? I know method 21, you'd start with calibrations. We talked about
Right.
that today.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so Jared hit on it really good with the training aspect, because the training requirements are there and you want to see what the abilities of those technicians are. And then also looking at when we talk about calibrations for method 21, you're also looking at having to have the daily assessment of the camera, right? And making sure that that's the start of it, right? The distance check. I've seen some work in the past where the distance check was performed, and then once it's performed, it was forgotten, and then the scans were different. So those are the types of things I would look at immediately, just to see if those procedures were being done correctly.
What about technology? Where would be pitfalls?
Leak size, for example, like a high level switch or something inside a doghouse that's a relatively low leak, and a low emission, and have some distance between the system and that event. Enough of those, you're looking at a super emitter, right? It's so, that's a gap that needs to be filled. Typically, you can approach it from a very holistic point of view to say, okay, an OGI camera inside of a doghouse doesn't make sense. What about a C1D1 Mach sensor that's going to pull that, and then we can augment or scan around that environment if a Mach sensor is going off. So it's all about the pre-engineering, and it's very case by case depending on the facility itself. But typically, it's going to take some sort of in a big environment or lots of things. It will take a combination of technology to approach the problem very holistically, and then you can verify using OGI, BSER, even AVO inspections is written into some of the stuff here. So that would be my.
Maybe it'd be a good place to start. Who in the room is actually using OGI currently? Of those that have their hands raised, who's doing it with a regulatory requirement, or you're just doing it voluntary? Keep your hands down if it's voluntary.
It's interesting.
Well, my opinion, would it be better to have multiple technologies working together at the 21 OGI your camera system as a way to, I'll use the word defend yourself against your government entities? Your opinion?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, especially if you start looking at some of the newer technologies like flyovers and things like that, you have to be able to identify where those emissions are coming from. So you're going to have two different technologies working together.
I think most of the people that are involved, at least from the, vendor side, us as LDAR contractors, we would much rather use all the tools that we have in our toolbox as opposed to being limited to one, which is what we've been limited to in regulation for a really long time. And now things are starting to open up, so that they get restricted again by how we have to use them and when we have to use them. And so it's just complicated. So the more that we can, have case studies and have examples of, how different states are approving things and allowing for more flexibility for the use of multiple technologies and methods to use those technologies. It's better for all of us.
Absolutely.
I do agree with you in terms of, I think.
Right now, we run a fence line, the rotation we do on the out-gal, then obviously we have a group, Montrose, that does our method 20.
Sure. Yeah, I think the industry is at reputational risk in general right now. And so I think the more the better, and making an investment and even if it's voluntary, I think it'll end up benefiting every operator greatly down the road.
Yeah, and I like the idea of this because that's 24/7 monitoring. Yes,
Sure.
we'll only get the big stuff, but it's important.
Yeah, I mean, the super emitter regs and all the stuff coming out, and
As soon as it happens, you want to identify it and repair it.
What were some pitfalls for you when going through this AIM and trying to get the AIM approved, right? Like,
yeah, lots of those.
How much time do we have?
Yeah, how much time do we have? Trying to think of pitfalls. It's hard to test. It's very hard to test. Getting the right data sets was tough because a lot of the testing facilities they're not very representative of real production facilities. So understanding the difference between testing environments and real production is very important. It's something we had to educate the regulators on. We had to educate the regulators on the modeling themselves, the simulation modeling, and then, really setting a distance. It's a rabbit hole going down how much gas an OGI camera can see at what distance, because it can get out further and further and further, and your leads can get bigger and bigger. So really kind of dialing in, saying, okay, what's good enough and what's going to make an impact. That was tough. But we were able to do it. So there's in just the working in that working through the proper government channels and things is always tough. So that was also just something, but yeah.
I think you brought up an important question earlier, is that he was asking, this is Colorado, right? So,
Sure.
They allow for AIMS permitted, and other states may not necessarily. But Jared, you've had a different experience with alternative work practice being implemented, and you just really have to go to the individual states and work with the regulators, explain what you're trying to accomplish. How do you go about that?
With a lot of patience. No, like TCEQ, we've had some really good success with them in implementing programs with the camera via permit initially. So we had some success stories, but now they've actually reached out, TCEQ, and said that they want to allow the cameras at some of the facilities that have older permits that are very specific in what you have to use, and it's not OGI. But now with things like Appendix K coming in to play, they're wanting to adopt that, but then I still have to meet the federal requirement using the alternative work practice, which then requires me to record the whole time. So it's just a lot of conflicting things going on whenever you're dealing with the state, and a lot of explaining. You have to do a lot of explaining, education. So I'd say if you are approaching any of the regulators, make sure that you really have a good game plan together and anticipate anything that they're going to ask and have the answers there for them up front.
And I know you two have worked with regulators and stuff. Have you yourself or your company, do you guys work with the regulators to get clients, permitted to use alternative work practice or OGI cameras?
So I can't speak directly for myself working for them. I know we do have permitting groups. But, that said, I've been involved with clients discussing, applicability determinations with regulators. But I can't speak specifically to an AWP decision or an OGI only decision that's not already required by like the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
So.
Any questions from our audience? Yes.
Going back to the AIM in Colorado, how many sites are currently deploying that technology and executing the program that you just explained?
Yeah. So what the trend we've seen in the market, in the Colorado market, really specifically, is really heavy investment on new facilities. Typically with AFEs open, right? That's what we've seen. With that, over time, we'll see anywhere from 3 to 10-year contract terms. The idea there is, over time, permitting this type of technology into those facilities. Over time, it'll be 80% of production, 90% of production moving forward. So it hasn't been a ton of investment on the legacy locations, things like that. But whenever you have a new drill site, new permit going in, they go all out here in Colorado, and then the legacy sites will kind of tail off as production tails off. So it's at scale in Colorado. It's probably about 100 facilities throughout this next year, which is a lot, for an OGI or a continuous OGI camera, So and there's only there's 4 major operators there, right? So it's not a huge it's not a huge production state compared to the Permian or anything like that, but yeah.
Let's talk about database management for a second. I know, we don't have the main players here in the room, but each of you have, I'm sure, different ways on managing OGI videos and that content. It's just a lot, right? So how are you managing your data when it comes to non-standard method 20?
Yeah, so, I work for Tri-Hydro, so we utilize Leak Tracker Pro. However, when it comes to other facilities, say like a midstream sector or a natural gas processing facility, sorry. And we're conducting that survey over, a start and time survey on that specific data set. Commercial software does allow you to do that in some cases. So specifically, when we're using Guideware, it allows you to date timestamp your leaks, so on and so forth. So, we can capture that data in AWP. And then, likewise, we're using Guideware for the Method 21 piece as well. As far as, what Guideware can't do for us is like saving the data footage and things like that. So, for that, we're saving it, uploading it. We might utilize Leak Tracker Pro to record our survey and store that information in that software system, calibration verifications, things of that nature. And then, obviously with even Method 21 programs, you're going to have a data hub to manage all your other record keeping components. So, yeah.
I had a question for you, follow-up. What are you doing with the duration videos for AWP, the extended recordings? Are you loading that up in your system as well?
So, and maybe I should be a little more specific that right now as a company, we are not managing any current AWP programs. So we have been involved in transitioning from AWP back to Method 21 or only operating in other state-specific or federally driven OGI programs. So.
Jared, how do you manage your database for OGI?
So it's our own software, Target Track. So from the OGI aspect, whenever we find leaks, we're recording the videos and that all is uploaded. And then it also has an aspect, if we're doing Method 21, most of the time, it's through Target Track as well. The inventory is plugged into that system, and just it works like any of the other Method 21 softwares do, as far as time stamping and everything, and Bluetoothing to the tool you're using. But specifically for what we call duration videos, because under AWP you have to record the entire time. We're keeping those in triplicate on external hard drives.
Because they're so long.
Yeah, it's hard to move it through the cloud and store it there. So there's physically one at the site. The technician has one that he keeps all of his work on, and then there's one back at the office where everything's uploaded. Because inevitably, one of those will get lost.
Got it. And what about your data? How are you handling data storage?
Yes. So our system works locally. It's working on the facility itself on an edge node. It's a little bit different because our data is trending, so it's always happening. It's not disparate. So the work practice, the alt aim is essentially every 2 minutes we're inspecting an equipment group or a zone, and then we go inspect another one, and we inspect another one and another one, and then by the time we get back, we're confirming or denying what we saw before. So, hey, this equipment group's leaking. I'm gonna go check this one, this one, this one. When I come back, if it's still leaking, now I have trending data. All of that is stored locally on the node, then moved to the operators through the operators' SCADA systems into their own historians and all that good stuff. Everything is backed up for 3 years in our cloud system. That's all the exception data. So if there is a leak, And if there's no leak, we discard the video. We don't need it. We have a record that there was no leak based on, so we convert that video data to telemetry data, which is much lighter to store. And then that goes on the exception data is stored in the cloud. And we're pulling, 8-bit streams, which is different than a lot of handheld stuff. So it's a lot lighter weight. It's a lot more compressed video. And so it's not as heavy, and it's a lot lighter. We can move it through the cloud. We can store it for extended period of time, put it into cold storage. So yeah.
And sorry, I wanted to add to what I said too. So, we do have programs where maybe the client is electing to store some of that footage, and how we're capturing some of those inspections is actually, instead of recording, say, the entire facility, we have that broken up into sections. So we have that identified, and it's, say, area A, is this video. So it's smaller segmented data, right?
Yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah.
In my talk earlier, I discussed early on, we figured out sometimes the battery will eject right in the middle of a recording, and then that you have to recapture all of that video recording. So we break it up in about 20-minute sections, and it's based on a geographical area. It's kind of what we do. We take, if it has an existing inventory, we just say, okay, in here, this skid, tags 500 through 700 are here, and keep all that data together.
Right.
Yeah.
And even though you have to do like a continuous monitoring, it doesn't mean continuous for 8 hours.
No, it's, you have to record the entire inspection. So of course, when you're stopping and saving to start a new video, you're not inspecting anymore. You move on. So, and it depends on the facility as far as how many duration videos are done in a day. It can be as few as 5 and as many as, up to 10.
When, as an auditor, and when you are all audited, have you all been audited? I guess is a good place to start. Jared, have you guys been auditing your programs and yourself?
Yes.
As an auditor, right, like when you're QA/QCing the data, maybe preparing for an audit, what does your QA/QC process look like for OGI, alternative work practice, your technology? How is that different than maybe on method 21, your QA/QC? There's a lot of data to QA/QC in method 21, and that's usually where the pitfalls are. You have dedicated database administrators, if that's all they do. How does an OGI, alternative work practice program, look different? Or maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, it's a lot of video. So there's a lot of, you can go and review everything that the technician did. But of course, that means for every technician, I'd have to have a full-time QA/QC guy. So what we do is we do about 10% of the videos, and you can quickly see whether a technician is performing appropriately and following all the laid out protocols. You see that really quick.
So when you find someone that isn't, is it like a wash? You're like, it's as if you didn't inspect that day, or how do you address that again?
It depends on what you're seeing. As long as they're inspecting the whole thing, but they're moving too fast, that's when we take them in retrain. It's like, slow down. Moving this fast, you could potentially miss something. We require 3-second. Right now, we just internally in the company, 3-second dwell time per scene, multiple angles. It's going to change with Appendix K, so they're going to have to follow that.
And it's interesting how what Jared's speaking of, it really rolls into the method 21 side, because you can look at data and you can look at a percentage of the data per technician, or you can look at different aspects of the data and really start to see the trends, to where you can tell that somebody is inspecting too quickly, or that maybe not performing method 21 properly. So really, I think from a QA standpoint, preparing for an audit or those types of things, it's really important to look at those trends, to start to look at those trends fast enough to where you can fix those trends and you can retrain and you can do those things. So it really is the same process. I mean, maybe it's looking at videos versus looking at hard data, but it's really the same concept, I would say. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Video that you guys do. How are you
So for the duration videos, we're specifically using external hard drives that are about the size of my phone. And every inspection is stored in triplicate on those. You've got the technician, you've got his hard drive, you've got the facility hard drive, and then you have one back at the office that's stored there. Because inevitably, one of those gets lost. It's usually the facility's hard drive. So we just go into the storage, pull that data, put it on a new hard drive and return it to them. I mean, this day and age, a terabyte external hard drive is nothing. So it's not really a challenge.
I would imagine that whatever your client's needs are, or the restrictions they might have with you accessing their systems, you have to work that out with them.
Yeah, well, we're not accessing their systems because it's an external hard drive. So we're taking our internal systems and feeding it into that. And then it just literally sits in the environmental personnel's office usually. And whenever we're done at the end of the day, and there's data to be uploaded, I mean, you're just grabbing an external hard drive, plugging it into the computer and saving it there. Now, it's kind of old school, but it's what it is right now because it's a lot of data, and we just haven't been able to figure out how to push it up through the cloud. Now, 10-second videos, things like that, which we do of leaks all day long, that feeds up to our system via cell phone network or Wi-Fi. Yeah. Oh, something that I wanted to mention about preparing for an audit. My theory is you're preparing for an audit all the time by having a good QA/QC program where you're taking and looking at things, not waiting until there's an audit.
Right. So just like we talked about earlier, preparing for an audit, right? You can prepare for a big audit coming up, but a lot of times it's too late, right? So doing your programs that you might have in place and ensuring that those programs are being done. I've seen on audits to where I know that the program that I'm auditing has specific quality control programs in place that there should be doing on a frequent basis. And if they're being done, you won't find these mistakes. So it's obvious that those aren't being done. So not only setting up those types of programs, but making sure those programs are getting done. Like Jared's talking about, you're constantly preparing for an audit. So when an audit happens, nobody's surprised. It should be fairly easy to do that preparation work.
Yeah, so it's a lot of data. It's the big difference though in consistency. Nothing changes. It's 24/7 all the time, same scenes, same equipment groups, same camera, same everything, just over and over and over again. So because of that, it's a lot different. It's an export, and it's not a lot of human element involved.
What is the human element? Is where there could be.
The human element. I mean, the nature of the system is there's no human element. We don't, once this is installed and it's running, humans don't touch it, right? It's.
There's no like calibration, precision checks, like.
Your camera gets swapped once a year. So you replace the camera once a year. But that's it. That's it. This is the cooler life and the core of the cooler itself. OGI it's running 24/7.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So correct. So camera gets swapped once a year. Other than that, everything stays very similar.
I guess outside of his program, the only thing that could go wrong is if whoever you're sending the data to, that there is a leak if they don't respond to that.
Correct, which is on
the fault. But that's on
the operator.
Yeah.
And that's if you went back to that slide, it's the diagnose repair. So you're getting an alert, and then you're classifying it under the LDAR subpart W. Hey, this is a flange connection. This is a whatever. That gets tagged. Then that gets put into a workflow. The coordinator, please. Yeah.
That's
Correct.
kind of like the element that's missing. So your internal operations would really have to pick up that piece, or you have to contact
Correct.
someone to do that.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yes.
Now, you had mentioned that your program's really more in upstream, starting to get into midstream. What are the challenges with the different
Size,
sizes of
size of facilities
facilities?
is,
Even blocking, right? Like
yep.
access to, how many cameras do you have to have? Like just so many different angles.
Yes, so size is a limitation, not necessarily a limitation, depending on how high up you want to get and what, however you put together the holistic solution. And in like, if we're going to midstream and, for example, a compressor building or something, sometimes it's just going to make sense to put a camera outside the building and watch your vents. And if you start seeing VOCs coming out of your vents, then okay, you have to send a human being in with an LDAR camera to locate the source, right? So it's situational. If it makes sense to put a camera inside in a C1D1 enclosure and put it inside the building, then okay, we can do that. It's really operator driven at that point. Everything's possible. It's a matter of how much you want to invest and how much you want to put into the program.
So the example that you gave, that you got the AIM approved, is that 100% autonomous program, or do they have pieces of their program that we're still doing method 21?
Yeah,
still
so
doing.
yeah, the detection piece of it is autonomous. The mitigation piece of it is subpart W. So it's the same workflow as a human LDAR operator. If we can't pinpoint the source individual, you're sending in an LDAR crew, you know. So it's very much empowering LDAR crews to be able to extend their reach and do more with less. Because I think the number one problem that we're going to see is people in general. You mentioned the training hours that have to go into the AWPs and the certified technicians and all those things. That takes a long time, and that's a lot of people, especially with the increased LDAR requirements. So this is specifically built to augment and extend the senior guys who are already there, or as you lose people, things like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone in the room that knows different. Providence Photonics has something similar, right?
Well, I mean, Providence Photonics is the engine behind the quantification for FLIR's system.
Oh, okay.
And they do some other things with
Yeah, they have three pillars. They have quantification, alarming, or analytics. And that's the engine behind our fixed mount system I talked about this morning and across the hallway. And then they also have a separate FLIR combustion efficiency solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mantis.
Yeah, I'm just letting since you're in the room, right? How does your technology differ from FLIR?
We work with FLIR a lot. Ours, I think it's pretty. It's pretty much. It's not the same. I don't know what FLIR is doing with their continuous stuff.
You know, one, a couple things.
Go ahead. Sure.
Go ahead.
You know, most of the difference in what they do compared to Providence is done in the past. Providence had an analytics that they've had for 7, 8, 19 years. I forgot how long it's actually been for alarming on this. And that was a co-owned analytic by ExxonMobil out of Baton Rouge, which is where Providence Photonics corporate office is. The difference is the way that they may go about and how they analyze the data. I think you mentioned just a second ago that you utilize a lower bit stream data where some of the other ones may utilize the full radiometric or the bit data of the stream as well. I think one of the key differences between what we have right now, the FLIR solution, and in collaboration with Providence, is right now we're focused more on just the methane side with the Geno 77A, and they have evaluated it, but their business model is more, you can feel free to correct me, Dave, but it is a bit more, let's completely take care of everything, right? Not just methane. Methane is only a part of the equation, which gets ignored by most of the technologies that are in the room across the hallway, right? Whereas the solution that David didn't have there, they're focusing on full hydrocarbon stream utilized in a different, in that way.
Sure.
Is that fair enough to kind of explain it?
Yes, I think so. to piggyback a little bit, we're camera agnostic.
That's what I was gonna ask.
So
You plug
so
anything into it.
we don't actually care what camera you use. It's just about the data itself. So
Selling a data platform and your algorithms. not
Correct.
Cameras. I mean, you
Right.
sell the cameras. You don't use whatever.
whatever you want to use, you can use. It doesn't matter to us. So yes, we have the full VOCs, the cooled camera, 3.3 micron, FLIR G320 or G300A or whatever, OpGals or Sierra Olympias or whoever, the Ventus, it doesn't matter. But we also do have our own methane camera, and it works well as well. So we can really hit or whatever the end user wants. That's what drives us. It's very much, what do you get? Tell us what you want us to give you, and we'll give it to you. Leveraging AI. That's essentially what we're doing. So.
We have a couple more minutes for last questions. Yeah.
And this is for Jared. We know there's a lot of consternation about the senior tech within Appendix K, right? And you covered pretty well about the requirements being overly prescriptive. You mentioned for Montrose, I think you said 30 technicians would qualify in the United States and 30 in Canada. It's going to be a universal problem, right? Like, what percentage within Montrose is that 30 of this? What percentage of
Senior level?
Yes.
Well, we've got great retention, so it's like over 75% are there right now in both US and Canada. We're sitting pretty, we're good. We have about 60 total between the two, so 75% of those. That's why I was emphasizing that so much. Right now, if you do not create a senior level OGI tech, you're going to be in a bind.
And that's an investment for sure, right? It's almost 3/4 of a year.
If you-
have to be
Oh.
Well, and my opinion on that is also keeping that as a senior level status, because they're required to do X amount of surveys
Mhm.
Of a specific type to maintain that. So, like myself, when I was in the field all the time, sure, but if because of turnover or new projects or whatever, if I'm needed to go in the field, I, as the team leader and very capable camera operator, may not be able to go do a survey.
Yeah, and training is important. All the emphasis on retraining to keep your status, to me, isn't as important. I mean, I could not have a camera in my hand for 2 years and pick one up and go outperform most people. So once you've learned, it's like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
Once you've got it down, what you're looking, know the methods, know what you're looking for. Because it's the biggest thing, and you've seen the METEC studies, I'm assuming, but the biggest thing that came out of that study was that training matters. Because I could teach anybody in the room how to operate a camera in about 15 minutes and send you out there. And are you going to find leaks? Probably you're going to find some, but a trained operator can go right behind you. And you might go find 2, he's going to find 25 because he knows what he's doing. He knows how to use the camera to find leaks. And that's the most important part.
And you had mentioned that you're actually transitioning some programs from alternative work practice or ODI back to Method 21. Can you talk about why that's happening, you think?
Oh, you missed my presentation.
Oh, I've been moderating all day.
It was like 2 hours ago. So a couple big reasons for that, was acquisition was a leading factor in that. So facilities were acquired. They were doing traditional LDAR Method 21 monitoring here, AWP here. Wanted to know, what are the differences between these facilities? So why are you finding more leaks here and not here? You monitor with this instrument here and not here. So really that started leading into the questions or into their reason why. And then there was just some regulatory concerns, trying to keep things consistent across their operating platform. So, you know, establishing a consistent LDAR program is important to, I think, a lot of operators. So having a consistency across all the regions, so.
Did you guys have anybody else come in and audit that team? The only reason I say that is because if they weren't finding more leaks since they method 21, is it because they weren't experienced enough, or they weren't trained properly, or was it, that wasn't the case, it was just the technology?
Well, no, I don't think technology had anything to do with it. I think that alternative work practice can work very well if it's implemented correctly. And if it's, you know, there's complacency in OGI just as much as there is in method 21. You know, so it goes down to, you know, the records that you're keeping and submitting to the agencies. You know, are you approved to do your AWP, or are you just doing it? You know, are you doing the annual method 21 correctly? So, you know, some camera companies just think that they can go implement a quad OA LDAR program for a compressor station at a gas plant. You know, you can't necessarily just do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that they go hand in hand, and, you know, I think that complacency is there in both traditional method 21 and in OGI.
Yeah.
So it's combating that, so.
Any last questions from our audience?
You mentioned earlier you had 30 techs, 60 techs. Suppose we had to pay them $100,000 a year. We can just hire yours for like 125.
We'll talk. I'll get you.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Buddy?
Oh, absolutely. Great meeting you.
Meet you slowly.
If you didn't get a chance to sign the sign-in sheet, please do it before you leave.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, thanks for, I don't know what the deal was with trying to get that and download it here. And then I'm sure I was like, man, this guy's
Within
gonna
the
think
year
I'm a joker,
before
it's coming over to Gmail.
No.
Then after that,
This Brian guy.
there's prescribed refreshers.
I didn't know. Doesn't do the refresher.
He's no longer a senior tech. And then he has to be trained. Yep.
Well, and quite honestly, I didn't either, so when I saw yours, I was like,
Shit. Don't care about people like that.
So you can, so certain things
No,
go to
and I
that,
appreciate
including
your question,
auditing.
too.
Okay, so there's things that
You can do to get the 40.
But you gotta think about those things. You gotta keep people doing the right thing.
Well,
Because you don't wanna
did
lose
it, I was the first.
Even if they're not doing the work, you still don't wanna lose them. No, they're still a
These
commodity.
guys, the first question was asked them, they looked at me like, oh,
Yeah, you.
I'm gonna have to make sure I do 30 hours.
For you to keep that certification. Because
I was that this year, or that was last year, I'm not sure they'll get this year.
yeah, but it's still something you have to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're busy doing other things. It's hard to get out there and do it. So we'll have to.
That
That
has a
aspect.
system somewhere where it's,
Yeah.
because right now we're tracking their hours with the target.
Target track, yeah,
But,
exactly.
so.
But it's not alarming there.
Survey
That's something we'll have to
one,
do.
It doesn't give you a warning.
But it's half a year and this guy hadn't done his
So you're
40 hours.
manually tracking that.
honestly, like,
There's no automation. You're gonna have to know who's doing what.
No, I'm not looking at it. It comes up on the quad OA reports.
Yeah. No, I get it, but you have to manually go look at those reports. You have somebody have to pay attention.
Yeah.
good luck with
Yeah.
your endeavors, and I think it's.
This is
Sarcasm, comments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just not gonna find anything small.
Right.
No problem, Tom. I didn't want to take it over. Yeah, I don't want to take it over.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my gosh, I think about half.
Yeah.
So, well, and I was like, man, this guy's getting my sales.
Yeah, because we're literally like.
Cute.
This is what we used to use.
Oh, I just gotta check the problem.
It's like, this is when I'm.
Yeah, this is going in the room until
You can't talk. And then we can.
Oh, I
Cool, well, good job.
I know.
I told her, hey, we can spot dot something. Yeah. Like. This is flying around.
I thought 10 seconds was.
Now this. So, it's not an American.
But the really big.
But then you always say, we kind of stuck it out. But we have
Well,
already.
so we're in this.
So